conference in Buswell's Hotel, Dublin today, hosted by Socialist Party public representatives, to highlight the cynical exploitation by sections of the media and business interests of the current water shortage crisis as a result of the weather, to hammer home propaganda that householders should now be charged for water, that domestic water charges should be reintroduced, and meters should be installed in every home. Not content with forcing ordinary working people, ordinary taxpayers to pay for the crisis in the economic system, the government and big business now want to further hammer these people with further punitive charges, with a new stealth tax, in fact, in the form of water charges that could cost anything between 500 and 1,000 euro per year. There is a cynical attempt to blame householders for the water shortage crisis, saying that an enormous number of people left their water taps running so that they wouldn't freeze over. We would deplore that if anybody did it. There's absolutely no proof that this happened on a massively wide scale. There is proof, however, that in many local authorities, according to an official audit sponsored by the Department of the Environment, that up to and even over 50% of treated water is lost through leakage from the mains, through damaged and burst pipes. That really is where the major crisis exists. So therefore, we reject absolutely this cynical propaganda ploy by big business, some of the media, and the government and the Minister for the Environment in particular. On February the 13th in the Teachers' Club in Dublin, as the Member of the European Parliament for the Greater Dublin area, I am hosting an open forum on the whole question of water charges, proposals to install meters, etc., to which we invite all those who would like to join with us in a campaign that will be undertaken to ensure that this new stealth tax, punitive tax, is not reintroduced. I would now like to call on our councillor in Fingal, Claire Daly, on the question of the water charges.
Thanks, Joe, and I'll maybe just add to a couple of the points that Joe made about the charges themselves. I think, first of all, we would very much see this issue in the context of the overall cutbacks and attacks on working people and our families, where it's quite clear that this government is intent on making us pay at every level. And in that sense, we see water charges as part of that anti-working class agenda and a double taxation, because PAYE workers have already paid for public services, including water, through our various income and revenue taxes, and in reality this is just a further attempt to squeeze more from us. And clearly, and I think many ordinary people actually have already drawn this conclusion, they are exploiting the current situation to facilitate the introduction of this charge. We fully appreciate and accept that water is an extremely valuable resource which should of course be conserved, but the reality is that if you even look at it from a householder's point of view, the Fianna Fáil government had an opportunity, a unique opportunity over the course of the boom to address this issue. Half of the state's housing stock was developed in the course of the last 13 years since water charges were last abolished. And if the government had been prepared to require developers to install up-to-the-minute water conservation devices in new homes in recent years, then huge volumes of water would have been conserved. But rather than requiring developers to do that and to conserve treated water, the government weren't prepared to allow the developers pay, so they want ordinary people to pay that price. There is huge evidence out there, and I won't delay people's time today in dealing with that, which shows that it's false to say that metering and charging reduces consumption. Even this week there was an article in the Engineers Journal earlier at the end of last year, which was repeated this week on radio interviews, and that which showed that in Dublin the average consumption of water for an average person was 148 litres per person per day, as compared to 146 litres per person per day in Scotland and 150 litres per day in England. And of course in Scotland water is charged for, and in England water is privatised and hugely expensive, and yet you can see the figures show the consumption is relatively the same. If this government was serious about conservation, there are loads of measures that they could have taken, and it is criminal that they allowed the billions of profits which were accumulated in the course of the boom to not address some of these issues. In Dublin alone, there are 800 kilometres of piping for water which are over 80 years old. That's the reason why you have the problems which have emerged after the weather crisis, not people's behaviour, and ordinary people are not going to be conned by this campaign that's going on at the moment.
Thank you, Claire. Now I'd like to call on the Socialist Party Councillor for Cork City, Mick Barry, with another aspect of the water charges issue.
How you doing? I'd just like to speak briefly about the hidden agenda that lies behind water charges, namely privatisation. When councils put a price on bin collection, it led on to the privatisation of bin services. The vast majority of councils in the state today no longer provide a refuse collection service. The reintroduction of water charges, similarly, will lead on to the privatisation of water. Once household water is turned into a commodity which is bought and sold in the market price, with a price on it and with the potential to turn a profit, big business, big corporations will batter the doors down in order to get their greedy hands on it and to make a profit. And Conservative governments, which will be cash-strapped Conservative governments, aren't going to have a major problem with doing the deal and selling the water supply to them. So if you want to keep water out of the hands of profiteers, water charges need to be stopped. By the way, if private operators get their hands on water supply, watch the price really go through the roof at that point. Now, in conclusion, we led a major boycott campaign against water charges in the 1990s, which culminated in a government being forced to abolish them in December of 1996. If there is an attempt to impose them again, they will be met with a similar campaign of mass opposition and people power. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Claire. The Socialist Party is committed to joining with ordinary people, as Mick said, in a major campaign of people power in opposition to this new tax when the government begins to move against it. So I'd like to thank you all for coming. Gurmil Mahbib.